And the great part of the story is, as if hostile AI agent weren't making it fun enough, quantum's just around the corner. So now for a presentation on Beyond Bits, defending data in the quantum age. Dr. Kawin Boonyapredee is going to come forward and tell us all about it. Kawin, take us into the world of quantum.
Thank you. Cheers. All right, good morning, everyone. I love how you rolled that R in my last name, Kawin Boonyapredee. All right. Thank you for inviting me for this presentation. This is my first time in Gold Coast. You know, yesterday I got the chance to go to the beach, and I was walking along. I had a leftover sandwich with me, and as I was walking, I encountered this weird-looking bird. And then 2 came along, and then 3 came along. I'm like, okay, these guys, you know, normally you can chase them away. They're just sitting there, they're staring at me, or maybe staring at my sandwich. So then I took a photo and I sent it to my Aussie friend, and I'm like, hey, this bird isn't scared of me. He's like, oh, that's a bin chicken. So it was today years old that I learned there's something called a bin chicken. And apparently they get aggressive, right? So I was like, luckily they're like, okay, first time in Gold Coast, we'll leave you alone. So my name is Kawin. I wear many hats, but I am a CISO advisor from KnowBe4 for APJ region. I'm also a SANS instructor for quantum security. We are developing quantum courses as we speak. In my other hat, I'm an adjunct professor in cybersecurity in the university in Washington, D.C. I chair PhD students in cybersecurity in doing research in AI and quantum and emerging tech. So without further ado, I wanted to get a raise of hands. How many are in quantum right now? 1. 2. Who wants to know about quantum? There we go. I love it. All right. So this presentation is going to give you kind of like an overview of what it is, what's in store, and why it's important. Okay? So if you look at, or if you put into your search engine, quantum computer, you see this, right? Pretty chandelier-looking thing. Really nice. I want to put that in my house somewhere, just lay it down. But you know, for real, the quantum computer is actually all the way down right there. That's it. The rest of it, might as well call it a refrigerator. So this is one type of quantum computer, superconducting. And it needs all these pipes and all these like tubes to supercool it down to near zero temperature to have quantum computers operate effectively. All right? But in fact, there are many different types of architectures of quantum computers. These are just a few. You'll hear about superconducting, you hear about trapped ions, photonics, neutral atoms, and there are big players in each different modality that's investing millions of dollars to develop this technology. All right? Here's just a quick overview of all the different types of modalities, the major ones that are being in play. Kind of their computational methods, their qubit types and qubit control methods. We'll get to the definition of qubits a little bit later. All right, let's start out with what is quantum computing. At the simplest state, the definition is quantum computing is based on quantum mechanics. It harnesses the principles to process information in ways that are fundamentally different from classical computing. All right? Now everyone's an expert? You good? No, not really. All right, so it's basically dealing with the behavior of matter and light at the end of the day. All right, and here are the components. These are the key concepts you have to know. Qubits, quantum bits. These are the basic building blocks of quantum computing. What's the basic building block of today? Come on, we know this. We learned this. IT guys, come on. Name it. Huh? Binary, zeros and ones. Zeros and ones. Remember, the basic building blocks of today's internet, if you break it down to the very elements, it's zeros and ones, right? But in quantum computing, these things are called qubits, right? These are subatomic particles we're dealing with. You like watching Ant-Man and Quantumania? and him shrinking to the quantum space. Yeah, it's kind of like that, a little bit more exaggerated, but we're dealing with subatomic particles that we're leveraging to do calculations. Secondly, we have entanglement. We've got particles, qubits, that can get entangled. What does that mean? So back in the 1930s and 40s, someone familiar you may have heard of, Albert Einstein. Yes, correct. He came up with this, well, he saw this weird phenomenon and said, quote unquote, this is a spooky thing at a distance. He literally said that. He couldn't explain it because there was this thing that was being shown that one qubit, apparently, if you have one qubit entangled with another, no matter how far apart they are, doing one effect will affect the other. So you change one, the other one instantly changes. So imagine one qubit here, maybe in Gold Coast, the other one in Sydney. One in here or other side of the world in the US, or even in space. If qubits are basically entangled and you change the properties of the one here, it will instantly change the properties there. So it kind of broke the theory of relativity, right? Superposition. So qubits can exist in multiple states simultaneously. So in classical physics that we're dealing with right now, we're using zeros and ones, right? It has to be a 0 or a 1, absolutes. There's no denying that. But a qubit can actually get into a state called superposition, where it can actually choose to be 0 or 1 or 0 and 1 at the same time. Mind blown? I don't get it, right? Still, that's what gives it the power to do computations faster than today's traditional computers. And lastly, we have quantum gates. So imagine looking at like a circuit board, electric circuit board, right? And you have gates going up and down, left and right. So similarly, from a logical standpoint, this is how we use quantum gates and put qubits in to do calculations, all right? There's things that you'll hear about, Hadamard gates, C0 gates. It'll kind of shift and kind of impact the way that it does calculations through these gates. So those are the key concepts. So you want to understand how fast, theoretically, a quantum computer is compared to a classical computer. Here it is. Here's an example. So imagine you have a question on the left, and you have 11 possible answers on the right. In today's classical computing method, today's computers, this is how it's done, one by one, in a linear state. Okay? However, with quantum computers, it does this. All right? All at the same time. So imagine 1,000,000 answers. How much faster that is. Here's another example. Today's regular classical computers will have to find the exit going this method, one by one, each path, one by one. The best representation that I've seen on what a quantum computer does is this. You'll look at the maze and just pour a lot of water inside to find the exit. All right? So it doesn't matter, it doesn't have to go through a one by one, but it just fills the maze up. So imagine the maze was like a football field size. Imagine how long it would take a classical computer versus a quantum computer to find that exit, right? Pouring the water or going one by one. So hopefully that gives you kind of an understanding of how fast a quantum computer can do computations versus today's computers. Now let's talk about the good. Material science. There are companies now looking into quantum computers to find out how do we do more advanced techniques on discovering new materials. So imagine a quantum computer can eventually discover that new battery that you can charge once a year. Or a material that's heat resistant to the sun on concrete, so wear and tear would be improved, right, in terms of decreasing and wear and tear from the sun. Or you even imagining a material that can be incorporated into the molecular structure of your building to take the heat and turn it into energy. You don't need no solar panels. So that's some great things. Another sector that's looking into quantum computers right now is logistics. Optimization of distribution and loading of products. The airlines are looking into it. Cargo is looking into it. Traveling salesman problem. Big problem, right? Trying to go to every city once at the optimal path. It's a hard problem to solve with today's classical computing. But with quantum, there's a possibility to solve that. All right, and also drug discovery. This is pretty big. So I come from a family of medical doctors. And I asked my dad, Dad, how long does it take to discover a drug and a vaccine, subsequent vaccine? How long do you think it'll take? Throw out a guess. Huh? How many? A lifetime. No, to discover an actual drug and vaccine? 12 months? Typically 10 to 15 years. How much do you think it costs? $1 to $2 billion. With quantum, all these new healthcare companies and pharmaceuticals are actually looking to quantum to speed up that solution. So imagine going from 10 to 15 years now to 10 to 15 months. Okay? I looked up to see what were the top 3 sectors in Australia by GDP. So it's broken down by this. Most of it is services, which does include multiple different sectors, so like healthcare, education, what have you, professional services. But with this, imagine like most of the GDP, over 90%, is through these 3 sectors. And what I did is kind of look up what can quantum computing do to help increase GDP or help the economy for Australia. So we've got precision diagnostics to detect diseases much earlier and treatable. So imagine even a cure for cancer. The potential is there. Radical personalization of education. You know, kids these days, I have a 7-year-old, you know, she navigates the iPad better than I do. But imagine like custom tailored, sped up, based on their behavior, their attributes, their age, their race, their creed, putting that into a quantum computer to kind of do a custom tailor-made education route for them, a path. We've got mining, huge thing. Like I said, logistics. Imagine doing extraction and determining the best place to do mining. Loading, refinery. All these optimization problems are huge, and they're very hard to solve using a supercomputer today. But with a quantum computer, there's a possibility with that. Next, we have financial modeling. Anyone in the financial services industry? Yes? Do you know that JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs have their own internal quantum teams? Yeah? They're touting that. You can look that up. Why? Because in finance, you know, speed is key. Trades, options, derivatives trading, risk assessments, end-of-day trading, all this stuff is now being looked into to being optimized using quantum algorithms. Pretty mind-blowing, right? All this is being done right now. All right, so that was good. And this is a cybersecurity conference, so let's talk about the bad. And you hear about this, that today's internet, the quantum computers could break current encryption methods, RSA 2048 ECC, right? And let's find out a little bit why. If you want to learn about how it will do it, there's only 2 algorithms you really need to know. And these aren't actually quantum algorithms. They're actually algorithms outside, but quantum computers can leverage these algorithms to do this. Shor's algorithm by Peter Shor, and Grover's algorithm by Dr. Love Grover. So these are 2 ones. I won't explain in detail. There's going to be 2 videos right now to kind of brief you on this, all right? Ready?
This is similar to how putting a lock on your door and bars on your windows doesn't guarantee that you won't have stuff stolen from your house, but does make it take more time and more work. Encrypting data isn't a guarantee of protection. It's a way of making it harder to access. Hopefully enough harder that no one thinks it's worth trying. But quantum computation has the potential to make it super easy to access encrypted data, like having a lightsaber you can use to cut through any lock or barrier, no matter how strong. Shor's algorithm is that lightsaber. Roughly speaking, to factor a given number, Shor's algorithm starts with a crappy guess that might share a factor with your target number, but which probably doesn't. and then the algorithm transforms it into a much better guess that probably does share a factor. There's nothing intrinsically quantum mechanical about this. You can, in fact, run a version of Shor's algorithm on a regular computer to factor big numbers. But perhaps unsurprisingly, the turning your bad guess into a better guess part of the process takes a very, very long time on a normal computer. On the other hand, this key step happens to be ridiculously fast on quantum computers.
All right, so remember that. Shor's algorithm, if quantum computers leverage that, could be the lightsaber, breaking every single lock, slicing through. All right, the next one, short video, is about Grover's algorithm.
The practical implications of Grover's algorithm are vast. One of its most significant applications is in cryptography. Many encryption schemes rely on the difficulty of brute forcing keys, an O(n) problem classically. Grover's algorithm reduces this to O times the square root of n, effectively halving the bit length security of symmetric key algorithms like AES. For instance, breaking a 128-bit key with classical brute force would require 2 to the 128th power of operations, but with Grover's algorithm, it could be done in 2 to the 64th power operations. Still formidable, but within reach of future quantum computers.
Pretty quick, but the explanation is pretty clear, right? It's a quadratic speedup enabled to break symmetric keys. All right? All right. Anyone hear about this term? Harvest now, decrypt later. You're hearing about it all the time, right? Or store now, decrypt later. Basically, what this means is that the adversaries right now, they know quantum computers are going to come, or are coming now. So what they're doing is they're taking your data, no matter if they're encrypted, or I don't know how strongly encrypted they are, they're just stealing the data, putting it away, storing it away for, whenever, until that one day a fault-tolerant universal quantum computer can come in and commercially use to break this encryption of your data. All righty? So now you have to question, as cybersecurity professionals, how important is your data? And data is not created equal, right? You have short-lived data, logs and all that. You have long-lived data, your IP, your intellectual property, right? Your confidential data, PII data, all this stuff. How important is it to you and your organization and your patients and your users, right? All right. One of the reasons a lot of people are really moving up the timeline on this Q day, which I'll explain in a bit, is that you can see in the news all the big tech companies are now investing or going into the quantum game. We've got Google Willow, we've got Amazon's Ocelot, and we've got Microsoft's Majorana one chip. I'm not sure, I like pronouncing it Majorana. I don't know if it's Majorana. I like Majorana. So I'll show you a small clip of the CEO of Microsoft, just referencing it.
And so now that we have,
Oops. Hey, I guess
and so now that we have it, we feel like with that core foundational fabrication technique out of the way, we can start building a Majorana chip, that Majorana 1, which I think is going to basically be the first chip that will be capable of 1 million qubits physical. And then on that, thousands of logical qubits, error corrected. And then it game on, right? So then you suddenly have now got the ability to build a real utility scale quantum computer. And that to me is now so much more feasible, right?
All right. So the next clip, here's another example. I'm not sure if you read about this. Google Willow's quantum chip came out 2 years ago. And they did a test case, controlled state, so a test case, not real life yet. But they were able to show that Willow's performance, it performed a computation in under 5 minutes that would have taken one of today's fastest computers. You ready for this? How many zeros is that? Too many. If my bank account was like that, I would be on the beach right now. But 10 septillion years that today's supercomputers would take to break the same, or do the computation in the same test bed. All right? They even went so far to say that Google says its new quantum chip indicates multiple universes exist. parallel universes, multiverses, right? Because as kids in our grade school, we learned that matter cannot be created or destroyed, only changed. So there was some place that this Google Willow chip pulled this computational power. So they said multiverse, obviously. Do we believe it? Something to think about. Oh boy, let me speed it up. I have about 50 more slides. I'm just kidding. One more thing about Jensen Huang at GTC's last conference last year. He noted about this, his investment.
Quantum computing is reaching an inflection point. We're within reach of being able to apply quantum computing, quantum classical computing in areas that can solve some interesting problems in the coming years. And so we've been working with all of the supercomputing centers. It's very clear now that over the next several years, or at least the next generation of supercomputers, every single one of them will have a QPU assigned and QPU connected to GPUs. Just as we accelerated the CPU, now there's QPU working with the GPU to enable the next generation of computing.
Pretty scary. They're partnering up with all the different DOE laboratories across the world, across the US, to develop this QPU. So acceleration of advancements of quantum computing is real, right? So local regulations, just really quickly, here's a slew of them in Australia itself, emphasizing any touch points on quantum computing and how it will affect you and your organization. All right, and at the global state, there are initiatives happening around the world. The importance of quantum computing and putting that national initiatives. So I represent this organization in Singapore called the Association of Information Security Professionals, more than 3,000 members, nonprofit. We represent an association on cybersecurity, and I lead the community of practice for quantum. And I'm one of the co-authors for the upcoming playbook from the Singapore CSA, Cybersecurity Agency, on a playbook. Right? That is going to be published probably Q2, Q3 of this year. And I'm also working with the Thailand CSA to pull that in and adopt a quantum national strategy for them. So globally, it's being pushed. All nation states, they realize the importance. All righty? I know I'm way over time. Do I have a little more time to speak? Oh, good? All right. So, with all the doom and gloom, and everyone sighing in front row, like, oh my God, another problem. What can we do? Simply put, essential checklist, kind of like if you're in vulnerability management, right? Inventory, prioritize, deploy, and monitor and update. But keep in mind, where is cryptography in your environment? Everywhere, right? Any device, anything that touches the data, there's some cryptography involved, right? So imagine the lengths of moving this and having a digital transformation to push into quantum resistance, quantum agile, it's going to take years. So the recommendation is to start now. Other things here, G7 just released this paper for the financial sector. You can look that up. But I recommend you go to this site. This is from my ex-CEO from my other quantum computing company, postquantum.com. Just bookmark that. Real-time news on updates on the quantum, the state of quantum. Hardware advancements, software advancements, all that stuff. You can scan that QR code. Don't worry, it's not phishing. You didn't fail a phishing test. It's all good. The next one. So I helped co-author and co-edit this Practical Quantum Security. It's a 61-page paper that white paper that we released about 2 years ago, a year and a half, to talk about what do cybersecurity teams need to do. A step-by-step practical exam. If you can't access it, just let me know. I'll send you the PDF. All right? I published a lot on LinkedIn, so connect with me. Hopefully I'm the only Kawin Boonyapredee on LinkedIn. I was flying over to Australia and I was like, okay, what's going on? So I did write a column on that. Other things really quickly, I know that SANS, we are leaders in thought leadership and emerging tech. So we did a podcast last year to talk about the quantum threat and kind of practical steps on how to address it. Alrighty, and lastly, we also had an Emerging Threats Summit last year where 4 experts, including moi, talked about quantum And we had Mark Carney, we had Konstantinos from Protivity, Santander Bank, just talk about kind of the use cases, threats, and what to look out for, all right? So I know I'm way over time, but my takeaway for you guys is this. This is the most important thing. If all this stuff you've heard about, this is it. PQC, quantum countdown. Hard now decrypt later, they're doing it right now, right? And the deadline, NIST standards were released 2 years ago. They have a deadline of 2035. The current encryption methods are going to be deprecated. All right? That's not a lot of time, especially for large organizations, right? So first things first, in that practical handbook, advice, scan. Understand what you have. Inventory, CBOM, cryptographic bill of materials. First, stage one, okay? Start there. And I'd like to thank you, everyone, for listening in. My name is Kawin. Here's my LinkedIn. Please connect with me. My number, line, WhatsApp, and Signal. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Just before we let you go, I've got a couple of questions. First of all, look, I don't know if you're the only Kawin Boonyapredee on LinkedIn, but you're certainly my favourite one. I want to say that. Can I ask, so when I first started talking to people about quantum was 20-odd years ago, we gave away a major Australian Science Award to a guy at the University of New South Wales, cutting edge of this area. Mm-hmm. But back then he said, we're pretty sure we can make all the individual chunks do stuff. Mm-hmm. But it was still an open argument, when you put these things together, might they just get too big and we can't actually build a quantum computer? Right. Now, my understanding is, there's people in the, look, we might just not be able to build it camp. There are people in the, no, we absolutely can. We've got the physics covered. It's just engineering.
Right.
I presume you're in the, it's just engineering camp, but are there still credible voices saying, I don't know if we'll ever be able to build a quantum computer. It just might not engineeringly and physically be possible. Is that still a credible argument, or is it inevitable that we will build them?
Yeah, great question, and I can go down the rabbit hole on this one. But I would say it's always good to have both sides of the camp. There's always going to be those that don't believe it and have the naysayers, and those that are embracing this technology. And we need both, right? Because we don't know what we don't know. Who knows? Maybe it won't come in the next 10 to 15 years, maybe 50 years. But the fact remains that we don't know. Things happen by accident. Discoveries happen by accident. Who knows that tomorrow that we'll have an actual quantum computer that you can use off the shelf, right? By accident. And even now, we hear the news, right? That countries are investing billions of dollars. China said 15 billion they invested in this. That's a lot of money. So in terms of the discovery, advancements of that, I see more in the lines of it's going to happen.
Excellent. As our way of saying thank you, mate, we've got a little gaming console. We're giving that to everyone here because it's game on. But we've also, because you're visiting the Gold Coast for the first time, we've assembled a special Welcome to Australia gift pack for you. So caramello koalas. Okay. These are chocolates, but they contain real koala. It's about 15 to 20% koala. Great source of protein along with your chocolates. We've got them there for you. There's these are retro party mix lollies there. Right. We've got some, Tim Tams, they're going to look like chocolate. They are strictly, but they're actually a straw through which have you ever seen an Aussie sip a coffee through a Tim Tam?
No.
You bite the ends off, and then through the sort of honeycomb bit there, you can drink your coffee. This is sunscreen, obviously. You've got to be careful in the Australian sun. But we've also, because you're on the Gold Coast, you haven't been here before, we've packed a special Australian sort of sunscreen facial moisturiser, high SPF, called Vegemite. Have you heard of Vegemite?
Vegemite?
Vegemite.
Sounds French.
Yeah, it's a French. There was a French Aussie guy invented it, and so it's very high SPF resistant, quite sort of sticky right when you first. Yeah.
Right here?
I'm actually 79 years old. The reason I don't look a day over 40 is I coat myself in Vegemite every morning. Okay. So give Kawin a big round of applause. There you go, buddy. Thanks. Wonderful presentation.
Thank you very much.
Great stuff.
Thank you.
Enjoy your time.